We are here with our Wild Roots Microschool and Homeschool Q&A call, and this is our agenda for today. We will be talking about first our Wild Roots Microschool information. We have lots of documents to look at. We're going to talk a lot today. We're going to try to keep it under an hour, so I'm going to talk a lot. But the good news is every single document that we look at together today, you will actually get an email that with the recording and every single document we talk about, so that you can look at it all by yourself later. And that way, it doesn't have to feel as quick and the information overload right now. You'll get to look at it on your own later, or actually most of this information is on our website as well. So first we'll do the Microschool info, then we'll do the Homeschool info, and then we'll end with our Q&A and answer questions there. Okay. So we'll start off by talking about me. I am Michael. I'm Michael Miller. I am the founder and creator of Wild Roots Nature-Based Learning. I'm super excited about all the work we have been doing. We officially launched this nonprofit in January, and we officially opened the website in March. And it has been a whirlwind of emotions and feelings, but amazing opportunities that we've offered for children for just these 4 short weeks of summer that we've already had with our summer camps. And it's been incredible. And I can't wait to see what we bring to the future of our foreign community. But I am an elementary teacher. I've been an elementary teacher for the past 14 years. I've always known I wanted to be a teacher and love doing that. I fell in love with Montessori and I became lower Montessori trained. And I taught at a private Montessori school in Avila for almost 10 years, for officially 9 years, and was the lead and also started a whole dual language program. I could talk a lot about my experiences in Montessori, but Montessori has my heart. It's the type of education that I prefer when working with children. I'm also forced school trained. I went to Tennessee and got an entire week-long study of the forest school training, and loved that and incorporated it in my Montessori classroom. And then that's really what a lot of the foundation of Wild Roots is based on. And then I'm also STEAM trained. Most people know what STEAM stands for, but in case you don't, it stands for science, technology, engineering, art, and mathematics. And part of the STEAM training is taking those components and bridging them together so that way kids can have lots of meaningful experiences, especially in terms of the engineering design process or the art design process, where we learn about the fact that the process is more important than the product, because with the process, we get to have an idea, we get to solve it, we get to create with it, and then we get to test it. And things that don't work out, sorry, there's a big truck. Okay. The things that don't work out from the testing, we get to change it and adapt it to make improvements. So I love using STEAM training in our work together with kids. I can't leave off, I have been a wife for 14 years as well. Very proud of my husband, and a mom of 2 amazing kids. And they get to come with me to camp. And they're coming with me to our Microschool as well. I'm also Fort Wayne born and raised. I've always wanted to be a part of the Fort Wayne community. And I really have noticed that there's a lack of nature-based learning here. And that's why I'm started Wild Roots. So this is about me, and we will keep moving on to talk more about the programs we're going to be offering. Okay, so when we're focusing on the Wild Roots Montessori Nature-Based Microschool, that's a mouthful. We really just kind of shorten it to Wild Roots Microschool, but when we fit in those other parts, it helps people have a better understanding of what we're doing. We are going to click on the program overview, and we're going to look through this document. Again, when you are done with this recording, you will get a follow-up email with the video as well as every single document we're looking at together so that you can look at it on your own. But basically, we have the full overview. I'm going to read through it, but I'm also going to skim so that we don't take up too much time with me just reading every single word. So this is the program overview: Montessori inspired, nature rich, loud motorcycle, whole child focus. Okay, at Wild Roots, we believe children thrive when they are seen, trusted, and connected to themselves, to others, and to the natural world. Our Montessori nature-based microschool serves children ages 3 to 13, and we offer a comprehensive, individualized education, which is rooted in curiosity, care, and outdoor learning. So when we say comprehensive, we're going to actually look at the full comprehensive plan, which means that we cover every single educational component like they would in a regular type of school. With Wild Roots, this is what makes us unique. So we are Montessori aligned. Montessori, we're going to talk a little bit more, but it's hands-on, it's child-led, it's academics focused, and it's proven with Montessori philosophy and principles. We also have nature as our classroom. We have daily outdoor learning. We're going to be exploring the different ecosystems. We're going to practice resilience and risk and joy, as well as environmental stewardship. We also, along with the Montessori philosophy, believe in the mixed age groups because we really allow for that community driven feel in the classroom that monitors and that allows for leadership to happen, collaboration to happen, and peer mentorship. When older friends are supporting younger friends are learning from one another in the community. It's a beautiful concept that works well. We also have the whole child development. That means that we are not focused just on whether or not your child can read or practice adding. We are focused on their full emotional and social growth. So we want to make sure that they can have executive functioning skills, that they practice their creativity because art is also as important. They have their physical movement, their fine motor skills, plus their gross motor skills are being developed over time. We are also very focused on equity and inclusion, specifically with families who identify in the neurodivergent, because the neurodivergent brain is often uh, looked over in a normal type of classroom. And so kids, especially who have ADHD or autism, are often punished and told that they are bad. And so with Wild Roots, we really focus on making sure that those brains are really cared for and not just tolerated, but truly accepted. So we actively decolonize our curriculum so that our classroom principals are uplifting voices that are diverse, and we challenge the systems of oppression in developmentally appropriate ways so that we're helping the kids be able to know that they are always included and connected in what we're doing. We also focus on individualized learning plans. If your child were to have an IEP, we would do that normally for every child because we believe that every single child, whether they're gifted or behind, they deserve their own plan that's going to lead them to success and help them to move on through their full educational career. Children progress at their own pace. And so we support them with our own educational plans and we observe them, we adapt with them, and we nurture their growth as we go. So because we are a micro school, and that's for several different reasons. One, we're keeping it small right now in terms of having it as more of a pilot program. So we're capping it at 30 kids only to make that micro school very small community feel. And we also have the micro school because it's limited hours for right now. As we grow, we would like to be able to add more hours, but we need to only have it from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. To keep those micro school hours for us, just supporting us as a full community. So from 9 to 9:30, that would be our arrival time. Plus, we will start our morning hike, and we'll hike together to our location where we'll have our classroom. From 9:30 to 10, we will have our community circle where we'll greet one another, feel connected as a whole, and we also make plans for our day. When we have a comprehensive educational plan that's individualized, every child needs to have their own plan for what they're going to practice and learn that day. So we make our plan, and most of it is child directed, but then it's checked by the guides, the teachers, to make sure that we're on the same page and what they're going to be practicing and working on that day. Then from 10 to 1, we have a Montessori work cycle. Montessori work cycle means that that's when the children are working and specifically on their academics. So they're working on the work from their lessons, and then they're also getting lessons so that they can learn new things and practice new skills during that time. It's also indicating independent snack. Kids love to eat, and especially while they're working hard. And so we encourage that when the kid is hungry, when your child is hungry, they will be invited to eat. They can get out their lunch bag. They can eat as they work, things like that, so that they're eating while they're working. Then from 1 o'clock to 1:50, we have 3 things that are happening actively. We're restoring. That just means we're cleaning up. We're putting things away where it goes. We're refreshing the environment for the next day. We're eating lunch. Lunch can be independent, or it can be with friends, or it can be even outside, depending on what the weather is like. And then we're headed into free play, and that will be outside. As long as the weather is fully cooperating, then we will be able to spend every single day outside, unless it's a really dangerous type of situation. Then we'll have more inside activities, Legos, marble runs, things like that. From 1:50 to 2 p.m., we'll have our closing community circle where we'll end our day, letting the kids feel connected to end the in that day. If there's any problems that need to be solved within the community, they can bring it up and we can solve them during that time. And then 2 p.m. is our dismissal. So they'll get picked up and go home. So what does it look like for in terms of academics? Well, in Montessori, these are a lot of Montessori words because that's who I am as an educator. But practical life, that's truly just building up a child's independence so that they can be a functioning human as they grow. That can be focusing on sweeping the floor with a broom, washing dishes, learning how to properly wash their hands, or properly cleaning up after themselves in the bathroom, or even just putting something away correctly back on the shelf. So practical life is that just what can you do as a young person to be able to be independent so that you are not relying on an adult figure to do things for you, but you can do it on your own and become a productive citizen in our community. So it's focused on independence, coordination, so a lot of the executive functioning skills, and self-care so that they can feel fully confident in themselves. Then we have the topic of sensorial. Sensorial is building on those five senses and helping them to hone in on those skills, observation, so that they can be able to sit and observe and make those critical thinkings happen for themselves without always being told what to think and do. Classification, where they're able to identify things and know things, and if they don't know it, they research it. And refining of those senses, focusing on what they see, what they hear, what they smell, what they touch, what they taste. And so those are those types of things. Then, because we are comprehensive educational program, we offer math with Montessori. It's focused on the concrete. That means individualized hands-on materials. So they're literally moving around the pieces to focus on the adding or the taking away or the multiplying. So that's the concrete, and then it moves to abstract. In a traditional classroom, we expect children to be able to do abstract way before they are ready. When they are able to build things in a concrete way, they're able to move more quickly to that abstraction in their mind because they fully understand it. For example, in my Montessori classroom, I had first graders who were able to fully multiply and divide because they knew how to do the concept with hands-on materials. In my traditional classroom, where I'm expecting kids to abstractly, they are still struggling how to add and subtract. So you can see those differences, that when they have the materials, they know what they're doing, where we're trying to force them to figure it out in a more abstract way. It's not because they just can't fully understand it. So when they have the Montessori materials, we are really focused on them building their number sense. They're learning their operations, which is adding, subtracting, multiplying, dividing. They're learning their algebraic thinking so that they can think beyond just those small operations. But when they have things with unknown numbers, they can be able to solve that. We're focusing on the fact practice so that they can be able to know their facts as quickly as possible. They have that fluency. Geometry, because geometry connects super well with nature in terms of having lines, angles, circles, etc. Also studying fractions. Fractions, again, as a child, I could not understand fractions until I became a Montessori teacher, because Montessori makes fractions so physical and concrete that it's the full whole and then it's divided pieces to show the full fraction. And then kids are able to fully understand what a fraction is, and then they can even add them, subtract them, etc. We also do data and measurement, where we are collecting data to make graphs, collecting data to show different lines, different things like that. And in terms of measurement, that would be measurement with rulers, measurement with weight, measurement with like cooking things. So that's all the huge concept of math. Math is actually one of my most favorite topics in Montessori. I could talk about that forever. Then we focus in language. Again, with language, we have the concrete to the abstract, really building those foundational skills to help your child become a reader and a writer and a researcher. So when we have language, we're using the Montessori materials to learn about our phonics, learning about our grammar. Grammar is a huge component. And it's interesting to me because I was able to be in a traditional classroom. They're just now realizing that grammar being pushed off for so long was detrimental to our children's learning, but grammar should be part of their children's everyday practice of learning. We also focus on word study. That's really identifying what words are, like homonyms, homophones, antonyms, synonyms, things like that. When the kids are really able to identify what those parts are, they flourish in their reading and their writing and their research. Then cultural studies, especially in the lower and up, like lower elementary, upper elementary. The why, wanting to know these big topics, is our huge driving force in terms of elementary education. And that's in the focus of cultural studies. So we are exploded with our science, our biology, our physics, earth science, astrology, then also focusing with social studies, our history, our geography, economics, and civics. And then the exploration of cosmic education, which is a huge concept, but basically helping us understand how all living things are actually interconnected. Additionally, with our Montessori, we focus on our cultural awareness, where we are really respecting and appreciate all different types of people, their cultures, and the beliefs all around the whole world. So this is all our focus in cultural studies, and we align that to what we're studying in our reading and our math, so that they all interweave well together. Then, because I love STEAM and how it ties well with the Montessori and nature curriculum, we can also then add in our arts, our music, our theater, and our engineering, so that the children can be able to fully understand the design process, and they can be able to respect that the process over the product is the more important part. Okay, so then we're going to dive into nature integration. So with our nature, because we are a nature-based school, and we have time to do our morning hikes, plus we have our more explore time with our free play in the afternoon, we'll dive in every single day into our nature. That will be in the forests and the prairies and the wetlands. They'll be able to climb trees, splash in little creeks, explore through the woods. They're able to connect what we're studying inside to the outside. They're able to learn throughout the entire year, through all the seasons. They're able to learn about stewardship and sustainability. Some of the partnerships we're making are focused on the stewardship and sustainability, so we're able to work with them and partner with them. They can actually see the full life cycles that we're learning about, plus the ecosystems and the fauna and flora that are outside. And then we can be able to connect it to what we're studying, where they can write and draw in their journals. They can be able to practice building forts and learning how like those weights of the heavy logs can build up to create. All of this is building confidence and exploring risk. So who are we serving? Well, we're serving our children who are ages 3 to 13 right now. We focus more on where your child is in terms of their academics, not determined on their age. So a child who is young but performing really, really high academically, will move them in that more advanced material. A children who is maybe aged older but is performing younger, we're going to focus on them at what they're needing, and we're going to work on building them up. We're going to be able to focus, fine tune those lessons, help them fill in any of those gaps that they're not getting, and we're going to bring them up together. It's something that I've done when I was in my Montessori classroom. Again, it's a mixed age, so I had first, second, and third. My first graders who'd come into me and they weren't successful in reading yet, I was able to focus on what their needs were. And by the end of third grade, before they left us in fourth grade, they were reading above grade level in terms of reading, because we had those years with them to build them along as we go. And we're fine tuning what they're needing and working on. So when we focus on what these ages look like, again, that's early childhood, which is 3 to 6. So those are more lessons, but we're looking at what they're needing. That's why you see an overlap in ages, because a 6-year-old might fit more as an early childhood, but they might fit more as a lower elementary child in terms of what they're needing and wanting. Then we have our lower elementary, which is 6 to 9. We have our upper elementary, which is 9 to 12, and then the middle school bridge. We talk about as a bridge because, again, we are focused on what each individual child needs, as well as what the family is needing. So if we have a child who fits best as an upper elementary student, but they're age 12 or 13, we want them to stay with us and continue on in that program. If what they're no longer needing is what we offer and provide, we want that child to feel successful to move on to a different type of program. So that's why it's the bridge, where we're kind of preparing them for the next program. We're never going to keep someone with us because it's not a good fit anymore. So we want them to feel good about that transition, moving on to a more of a middle school type model. If you want to learn more, you can email us here, or you can check out our website. All right, so we're going to come back out of this and go on to our next slide. So we talked a lot about Montessori. This is just a really brief overview of what Montessori is, because we are a Montessori nature-based micro school. So the Montessori philosophy is a child-centered approach to education. It emphasizes independence. It emphasizes hands-on, so kids using their hands. It's focused on the child's natural development, so following what the child is needing and not forcing them into subjects they're not ready to handle. It's really rooted in fostering curiosity, critical thinking, and a deep connection to the world. So it's really helping kids be able to think about the big picture and the why about things, and wanting them to understand and be curious. The Montessori education nurtures the whole child. So we're focused on their academics, on their social and emotional needs as well. So we're focused on helping them become big, like true citizens in our community. With Wild Roots, we align this philosophy by creating inclusive, nature-based learning that empowers underrepresented students and families. Through self-directed exploration, collaboration, and STEAM-integrated practices, we at Wild Roots, we honor the Montessori commitment to equity, peace, and liberatory education. All right, so that is us here. We are now, so we kind of did a full program overview. We're now going to look at the comprehensive education plan, and it's another document. Again, you will get a copy of this. Because I've already talked a lot and I don't want to keep talking on, we're already at 30 minutes here. I will just skim. I won't read through this whole thing because I kind of already covered a lot when we did the program overview. Okay, so we talked a bit about practical life. It just gives a more in-depth process of what that covers, especially with sensorial mathematics, with language, with cultural studies. Again, with the nature-based integration, we talked about the individualized learning and assessment. We will use assessments at the beginning of the year, middle of the year, and end of the year, so that we can track the progress and the learning growth targets that your child has, and help make sure that we're giving them the lessons that they need, so that we're able to align what's actually in their brain and coming out, to be able to make sure it's matching their education. We do this because actually that middle of the year assessment is the most important, because if we're noticing that the child is not picking up something, we can start bringing in more supports to help that child. If a child is making really fast progress and growth, which happens a lot of the time, then we'll adjust them and kind of go more quickly and kind of jump ahead to where they need to be. So we do use different assessments. We also watch them every single day through our observations and their work to see what they're needing and what they are doing. Again, it's not competitive. It is focused on their growth. We want every child to grow in their own developmental way. We're also family engaged and focused. So we will be checking in with you, letting you know how your child is doing, and making sure that we are working on those specific goals, whether they're social goals, emotional goals, or academic goals. Again, we are social and emotional development focused. We help them in these ways. We want to make sure that they have emotional literacy and self-awareness, being able to self-regulate. We focus on peace education and conflict resolution, because we are people and conflict happens. And so they need tools to be able to work things out. We focus on our community, because we are a community, and we need to know how we work together and collaborate. Even when we don't always get along, we need to know how to work through that together. We focus with our mixed age groups on the fact that we have leaders and mentors. That can happen at any age. Sometimes our best leaders are actually the younger friends, and we can be able to learn from them and grow from them. We're also focused on anti-bias and anti-racist practices, because we are intentional about those learning opportunities and making sure that everyone feels welcomed and connected in what we're doing. We talked a bit about the age-based continuum, so the primary, the lower, the upper, and then the middle school bridge. So you can, again, take more in-depth looks at that when you look at the handout. Okay, so I focused a lot on neurodivergent brains, because when I'm in a traditional classroom, I notice that those kids are the ones who are the most left out. And so with Wild Roots, we really want to show that kids who have autism, ADHD, maybe especially gifted, really can thrive in the type of environment that we are creating. So at Wild Roots, our Montessori nature-based approach offers a nurturing and flexible environment where neurodivergent children can truly thrive. We have an emphasis on choice, on movement, and hands-on exploration. We honor each child's unique rhythm. Every child is different. We honor that they are unique and that they engage in the world differently. And so we want to make sure that each child feels comfortable and connected in their own way. We know that learning in nature can actually provide a calming and sensory-rich opportunity that helps them focus on regulating themselves, actually helps them to focus, because they're able to build that focus pathway, and it helps them to be more creative and more exploratory. When they're not overwhelmed with the traditional classroom that comes with everything there. At Wild Roots, neurodivergent children are able to feel empowered, they are able to grow with confidence, and they're able to connect deeply with the environment, and they're able to learn in ways that make sense for them, because not every person is the same. We want every child to have their own path that makes sense to them. I will not spend time reading through the handbook. The handbook is maybe 18 pages, but I just want to show you that it does exist, so that you can be able to read through it. You will have access for the full document. It goes through each individualized things, a letter from me, focusing on our mission and our vision. It talks more about the programs, but it is a full handbook. When you are ready to register, you will get to have the full copy of the handbook and also the handbook acknowledgement letter, so that you can sign that you are agreeing to the handbook. Then we'll talk about the calendar so that you have a better understanding of when our classes meet and which days. So this is the calendar. Again, you will have a copy of this. I have color coded it. I love organization so that it's very simple to understand. Green means it's the start date. So August 18th is our first day of school. Again, that's from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. All of the yellows mean we're just taking a break, similar to a yellow light. So we're just taking a break. It could be due to a holiday. It could be to just a natural flow in the rhythm of the season. So those are different breaks that we are happening. And then red means stop. Red means it's the end. So we will conclude on May 29th. Then, so that's the full calendar that you can see visually. And then we have a breakdown key table that highlights the dates. And it also gives you an understanding of why we're taking a break that day. And then on the right-hand side, because attendance, especially in Indiana, is extremely important to be able to track records that your child is engaged in school. This shows you the attendance record so that it can show how many days we are in session and that marking of that total of 180 days. That is the exact number that is expected and required to have your child engaged in school is for that 180 days. So that's our full calendar there. Then in terms of wanting to have our tuition schedule, this is our document. Again, you'll get to see this document. But the full tuition schedule for the Montessori school is $6,000 for the year. The $6,000 can be paid up front and you can just pay all in advance, or you can break it down into monthly installments. We use Shopify for our payment plan. And we want you to pay with your own power to be able to pay through Shopify Pay. And that allows you to fit whichever meets your own needs. So it's a monthly installments. You can choose 3 months. You can choose every month. You can choose 6 months. You can choose 9 months. So whatever works in your payment plan, you can set that up through Shopify and it will allow you to fully adjust it. So that way you can pay it as you go. Additionally, we are fully approved to be an ESA funds provider. So if you already have gotten approval with ESA funds with the state of Indiana, that's with our educational funds program. If you've already received those funds or you've been approved, I know that they have a wait list that they're still honoring. We are approved provider, so you can use those funds you've already been granted for our program. So that is the tuition. And then these are just some quotes we've collected from the summer from different families. One parent said, "I cannot thank you enough for how much you've been so understanding and accommodating for my child. This is his first summer. He's actually been able to go to camp without any complaints. I was very worried he would be kicked out like he had been at another camps, and it would break his heart again. I don't have the words to explain how much you've made a difference this week by including him and ignoring his odd behaviors. He's a lot of fun and happy and nature and the outdoors." So that was just one quote from one family. Another parent said, "Thank you so much for his first ever positive feedback that he's ever gotten from any teacher." So you can see that that's our focus here with Wild Roots. Another parent said, "Thank you for doing what you do. He's having such a great experience." And then another one saying, "My daughter had a wonderful time. I was very impressed with how organized everything was and how kind the staff was." So that's just some quotes from families from just our summer camps. So now we've talked about the microschool part. We're going to now shift our gears and focus on the homeschool part. You can stick around and hear both sides, or in a little bit, we'll be coming back to the Q&A. So we're going to kind of compare and contrast as we go. So we've talked a lot about the microschool component. Now we'll talk about the homeschool component. So for our Wild Roots Homeschool with Social Studies classes, this is our program overview for that. Our Social Studies classes will meet on Thursdays. So we won't read through this because it's a copy and paste of what we already read, and I want to be mindful of our time. So again, we are still focused on nature-based. We're still focused on Montessori. We're focused on all those components that we've already talked about, but it's just showing up in the homeschool program overview. Again, it's the same daily schedule because on those days for the homeschool classes, they'll join us in our microschool. They'll join our regular flow and join our community for the day. So they'll be able to arrive. They're going to get the community circle. We're going to make a plan for the day. They're going to follow the work cycle where they get those social studies lessons, and then they're going to get to go outside, have lunch, be a part of all of that. So with our social studies classes, here's the things that we're going to be covering. If you're focused on the fall social studies class, these are our start dates and our end dates. We'll look at the calendar in a minute, so I feel like that will be more useful for our time if we focus on the calendar then. For the fall, these are the things that we are focusing on. We have history. We'll be focusing on creating personal timelines. We'll be exploring family histories. We're going to explore the land in terms of indigenous folks like the Miami, the Potawatomi, and the Shawnee, and learn about oral storytelling and how those different cultures explored the fall and the harvest. We will focus on civics and government. We'll talk about different elected officials. How are those elected officials caring for our environments, caring for our communities, things like that. We will practice inclusive decision making by learning how our community works. We will make lots of votes and lots of choices together. Problems that arise in the community, we'll work through them together. And we'll even invite some of these local officials to be able to come and meet with our students, with our partnerships that we have. It lends itself that they can join us for our hikes or for one of our like seed dispersal programs, things like that. Geography, we'll practice mapping with our journals. We'll study maps. We'll study the compass rows. We'll learn about landforms and water forms, especially when we're hiking. And we'll use nature walks to build that human and nature connection. We're also studying the economics part of our social studies curriculum, where we'll learn about goods and services. We'll even create our own little mini micro markets where we can be able to barter and trade and learn about scarcity and just learning about how economics works with things like sticks, seeds. Kids do it naturally on their own, and it's really incredible when they make their own shops and they trade things. We'll incorporate that with our economics. And then we'll also learn about journaling for them to be able to read those stories and connect with it in those ways. So that's our fall social studies focus. Then our winter social studies focus. So you could choose to do all three if you wanted. This is just a good component so that you can decide which one makes a sense, or you can do all three. But the winter, we're focused on these topics. We have the history. We're comparing winter traditions. We're studying how early people survived in the winter, prepared for the winter. We'll journal about oral storytelling, and we'll create timelines of different historical figures. With civics and government, we will again invite different elected officials to come and help us with snow removal, learn about how people do that within the community, learn about how people do heating. We'll learn about different laws and governments, especially in terms of nature, like protecting the land and the resources. We'll practice, again, those decision-making things in our community circles, and we'll invite those community members to help us with our work. In geography, we will use animal tracking and seasonal map making so that we can learn about migration and hibernation. We'll learn about spatial awareness in terms of moving around on trails, measuring distance, things like that outside. We'll even create topographical models of maps, so being able to create maps that also show like different landforms and water forms within the map. And we can compare Indiana's regions and ecosystems with biodiversity that happens around the world. So really studying maps all around and how does Indiana compare. Again, we'll study economics. We'll talk about the scarcity, saving, resource management, and we can even talk about that in terms of equity versus equality. We'll compare traditional systems of trade and modern systems of trade, and also in terms of heating, food gathering, specifically in Indiana. And we'll even learn about concepts of community care economics or fair trade practices. So that's our winter section. And then we have our spring section. And so then in spring, we will again focus on history. With our history, we'll explore changes over time, especially in terms of landscape and biodiversity. We'll create timelines like following the seasons, following plant growth. We'll research Indiana's environmental history. How has it impacted people? We'll investigate civil rights movements and change makers in Indiana so that we can create timelines of following those types of things that happen. In civics and government, we will study different local leaders. How are they supporting gardens, green spaces, environmental policies? We'll even write letters and draw pictures to help and make sure that they are practicing those things to make our environment better and having fair practices for different people. And we can even participate in civic action practices like a cleanup day or a planting day. With our geography, we can map out different garden beds or how to flow. Hang on one second. How stormwater can flow, or even pollinator paths. We can map our community with biodiversity, and also discussion about environmental justice. How has pollution affected the people in the community? We can hike and journal about different habitats and the climates that are there, how our community is connected to our land. And we'll even explore the geography in terms of green space, clean water, and healthy food. Then we'll explore economics or investigate supply and demand through exchange of goods with our own classroom economy. We will explore the sustainability and fair trade systems. And we'll even have, again, another role play opportunity where they'll kind of create their own market. They could gather wildflowers. They could be able to collect seeds and learn how we can either do fair trade or more of an economic system. And then we'll reflect on those types of things. How does that happen and which leaders are promoting what? Again, you'll be able to have access to this full document at the end in an email. So that's the social studies, and those will meeting are Thursdays. Then we have the science, and those are all going to be meeting on Fridays. So again, with science, it's following the full Montessori plan and philosophy, following the schedule. The homeschool science classes will come and join our microschool community so that they can get to have more interactions with different kids. They'll be a part of our daily flow. But then in terms of what they're getting in the science classes, these are the things we'll be studying. So, oops, I'm just getting a notice that my battery is going to die. Let me text and ask if I can get help with a battery real quick.
While Michael's doing that, I'm just going to add a note here that in addition to this information being sent out with the recording, a lot of this information is embedded into our website. So if you haven't visited our website recently, go ahead and check it out because we've completely revamped the whole thing to incorporate all of this information about the microschool and homeschool classes. So there's a lot more information accessible on our website now too.
Yes, thank you, Kirsten. I'm glad you said that. Yes, you did an amazing job on the website, and I appreciate it. Okay, so I just texted my husband. Hopefully he'll bring me a charger soon. So, okay, we have our fall science classes, and again, those are happening on Fridays. They are focused on the 4 components of life science, so studying plants and animals, the life cycles of those, leaves, fungi, insects, animals, mammals, etc. We'll also explore seed dispersal. Is that happening through wind, through animals, through germination, and things like that? We will identify the various local and fauna and then follow their seasonal behaviors, especially because it's happening in the fall. What are they doing to prepare for winter? Then we will focus on sorry, I couldn't scroll there for a second. Then we'll focus on Earth and space science. So that's our Earth and our astrology. We'll observe seasonal patterns and we'll even track daylight. How does the sun affect our land? We can be able to journal those shadows in our notebooks. We will start nature phenology, where we're able to focus on one specific spot in nature and how does that change over time in the seasons. We'll even study decomposition. How does compost work? How does fungi support that? How are insects helping us decompose things? Then in terms of physical science, we'll investigate different changes in matter, our solid to liquid, how does temperature affect things, how are leaves and water affecting things, etc. We'll also explore forces and motion in nature, like wind in the leaves, rolling acorns. We'll study gravity, things like that. Then our next component is engineering, technology, and applications of science. So we will even build and design our own seed dispersal model so that we can learn about how different plants send out seeds, and we can even build our own model or build a way to support plants to do that. We will also build animal shelters. We'll use natural or nature-based or recycled materials to do that. We can even create tools to measure and observe our weather changes. Okay, so that's our fall section of science. Our winter section of science, again, we're focusing on those 4 areas in science. Our life science will investigate how animals and plants adapt in the winter. How are they hibernating, migrating? What's dormancy like? We will study evergreen versus deciduous trees and what are different plants that are happening there. And then we'll explore food scarcity and energy in the cold seasons. In terms of earth and space science, we'll study matter through snow and ice. We'll do water experiments. We'll really study how adding heat or taking away heat, how does that affect states of matter? And we'll even observe moon phases and constellations in the winter skies. Then, thanks, babe. We appreciate you. Okay, so now we have our physical science. We will explore insulation. How do people heat things? How can we heat things? And how does heating transfer natural materials? We'll investigate friction and motion on ice and other snowy surfaces, and we'll experiment with sound. How does it travel differently in quiet forests covered in snow versus not covered in snow and with leaves off of trees, etc. Then we'll explore engineering, technology, and applications of science. We can build mini greenhouses where we're practicing insulating shelters. We'll design a winter bird feeder, or we can even do an animal tracking tool. And then we'll test materials for warmth. How do natural versus synthetic materials help us to stay warm? So that's our science applications in the winter. Then we have our spring focus, again, with those four science components. In terms of life science, we'll study metamorphosis. How do frogs, butterflies, plants, etc., how do they change over time? We'll observe different pollinators and how plants reproduce. And we'll explore the interdependence in ecosystems. How does soil, water, insect roots, how does everything work together in a cycle and in a community? In terms of earth and space science, we will explore and build our own models to help us learn about erosion and weathering and how it impacts soil, the rock cycle, the water cycle, etc. We'll also learn more about explore the water cycle. We'll learn more about the rock cycle, and we'll even study the different soil layers in terms of the earth. In physical science, we will explore light and light reflection. We can check that out through puddles, through prisms, and through different observations of the sun. We'll investigate water flow, gravity, and absorption in natural environments. And we'll use different tools to measure rain, wind, and temperature. In engineering, we will design our own water collection, or we can design our own irrigation system for them to follow the flow of water. We will build bug hotels or pollinator gardens, so depending on which interest the child has. And then we will even practice constructing our own little mini wetland model so that we can learn how nature actually purifies its own wetland with it, how it purifies their own ecosystem with a wetland and how those things work together. So again, you can check out all of that on the website, or you'll get the document in a little bit. Okay, so now we'll take a look at the calendar for the homeschool programs. Again, it's color-coded, and this time is color-coded based on the season. So down here is the key that goes with it. But to have a good visual of this calendar and the color coding system, the orange shows you the social studies days for fall colors. And red shows you the science Friday classes in red. When Wild Roots has a break, it's just white. That means we're not having class that day. So it also is indicated in the key. If there's a break, then that we don't have fall class either. We don't have a science class or a social studies class either. Then we will have the winter classes. The winter classes are blue and purple, those darker winter colors. The blue is for those social studies, and the purple is for the science. You can take note that the fall is 12 weeks long, the winter is 10 weeks long, and the spring is 12 weeks. It's just how it worked out in terms of the calendar. So the winter, we didn't lose 2 weeks, but we only have 10 weeks together. And so that's how it's modified in terms of what we're studying for the winter class. And then for the spring, we have some spring colors. The social studies are green and the science is pink. And then again, when it has a break, you see that reflected in the calendar as well in the key. Okay, so that's the calendar. Then for our class fees for the homeschool classes, okay, so for the homeschool classes, terms of fees. So we have here the fall social studies and the fall science. Because they are 12 weeks long, it's a $600 total. Again, when you purchase through Shopify, it allows you to break it down into different installments so that you can pay per month or pay a full fee, whatever works for you. The winter classes are only 10 weeks long, so that's $500 total. And then the spring classes are 12 weeks again. So that's the $600 total. So those are where those fees, again, we are ESA funds approved provider. So you can use those funds to pay for these classes, and you can adjust things through Shopify. All right, so those are the class fees. And now I think we finally reached to the Q&A section. We went through all of the info for the Microschool. We went through info to the social studies and the science homeschool classes. And now we're ready to take questions that we have. So I'm going to take a drink of water. And Kirsten, you can let me know what questions that we have.
Thanks, Michael. So the first question we have says, will the Microschool have any type of music education and different instrument teachings for children that are interested in instruments?
That's a really, really, really great question. I believe full-heartedly in a really great music program when we have a more robust day. So not a micro school. When we have a full school, we will have like an art class, a music class, etc., a theater class, things like that. Because it's a micro school, we will not have instruction specifically on music. But what I love to do is incorporate the arts in our everyday classroom. And so we do that by allowing the kids to have different things in the classroom. I've bought it's a little harp, like it's a lap harp. And the kids can be able to set a 5-minute stand timer so they can just take a musical break and they can learn how to play an instrument. It has a pick and it has little notes so that they can learn how to pick and play a song on that. We've also purchased a little drum that helps them to, like, it taps to the music beat so they can tap with it. So we are not going to have a full music class, but we try to incorporate as much of the musical standards as we can, especially in terms of helping them develop that art brain. Again, it's a micro school because we end at 2 p.m. So if exploring a music class is something you really, really want, you now have extra hours in your day that they could then go to another class to study those types of things as well. But for right now, no, we don't have a class for that, but we do incorporate that as much as possible within our day.
Thank you, Michael. Another question is about the location for the homeschooling classes and the micro school classes.
Yes, I'm so glad that someone asked about location because location is a big thing I'm still working on. Right now, we have 3 different possibilities. They each have their own pros and cons. I'm waiting to hear back this week to finalize those decisions. But yeah, right now we actually don't have the finalized location, but it will be hopefully finalized within the next 2 weeks. But no, I apologize. We don't have that officially done yet.
Once we have the locations finalized, they will be added into the website for each of those particular programs. So just stay tuned on the website. We'll make sure that that stays up to date.
Yes.
Another question, of course. Another question is about, so there's a little bit of confusion about the micro school days versus the homeschool days. So can you just clarify that micro school is the full week, Monday through Friday, and then homeschool is Thursday and Friday, and how that kind of interweaves together?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I understand that it's really different than what anything has experienced. So the micro school is allowing your child to come every single day. Monday through Friday, they will come to us and we'll be in charge of their comprehensive education. So we will make sure that your child is learning to read, learning how to do math, learning how to do their reading and their writing in terms of cultural studies. So that way you can say, my child is going to school, they're getting their educational plan from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. plus they're getting nature exposure as well. But again, because it ends at 2, if you want to do extra things after that, for sure you now have some time for that. So that is Monday through Friday. And that happens all school year long, normal August 18th to May 29th. So that is the full school year, plus you have built-in breaks. And then we can be able to approve those records to the state of Indiana because we tracked that we have a full 180 days educational program. Then we have additionally the homeschool classes. So if microschool is what you want your child to come and learn every single day with us, then they get to do the microschool plan. But if you are preferring that you are in charge of your child's more academics at home or in another program. You want to make sure that your child gets math, language, learning to read, getting music. If you're more of a homeschool co-op type person or family, then you can do those things at another site. But when you come to us at Wild Roots on a Thursday class to get their social studies or the Friday class to get their science, we are helping to make sure that we are aligning with you and your family, that when they come to us on those social studies day, they're getting their social studies classes from us. They're getting their nature exposure from us. But the benefit is they're kind of joining our other community so that they're building more friendships with their kids. They're seeing what the other kids are learning about and talking about. So they're just kind of having more of those peer collaborations and interactions, but we'll be focused on the social studies with those kids on those days, plus the nature as well. Then if you're choosing the science classes, then they would come to us and get their science on those days. So they would come on Friday and they would, again, join our community. They're building those peer collaborations. They are getting that interaction, but they're getting their science lessons from us on Fridays. If you wanted to, you could do social studies and science, and then your kid comes to us Thursday, Friday, and they're getting both of those from us, or you could choose just social studies or just science. So I hope that gives a little bit more explanation. We also broke it down to fall, winter, spring. So you could choose to purchase fall social studies and then you don't ever come back to us, or you could choose to buy the fall, winter, spring social studies and come to us all year round. So I hope that makes a little more sense, but I appreciate the question.
I'm going to just add one additional piece just to make sure it's really clear.
Thank
So, of course, so the micro school is happening Monday through Friday. And then the children who are joining for the homeschooling classes on Thursdays and Fridays are essentially joining into the micro school just for the Thursday and Friday sessions. So the micro school and the homeschool children will be joining together for their classes on Thursdays and Fridays.
Mm-hmm. And when we have those number ratios, then we add in more staff and they can focus on like if I have a staff member who's in charge of the homeschooling kids, then they would come only on the Thursdays and Fridays, and then making sure that those kids are cared for, but they're still a part of what we're doing.
Another question, do you participate in state testing like iRead and iReady?
We are not currently accredited through the state, so we do not currently do state testing.
Another question says, is there a possibility to try out and see how a child handles full Monday through Friday? And if it's too much and not a good fit, they could transition to just the homeschool days, Thursday and Friday.
That's a really, really, really good question.
I would say that probably the best way to try things out would be to start with the Thursday and the Friday and see how those days go. And then, yeah.
I think that is an option. Another option is try a week of one of our summer camps. We still have 4 weeks left in July. And so if your child is just wanting to get to know me as an educator, you and your family want to understand a little bit more about what we are with Wild Roots, trying out the summer camp is following a lot of those similar models of how we work together, and we are different than other programs. So if really what you just want to see is what are we like, then I would recommend trying us out as a summer camp, and then that would give you a little bit more understanding. Also with summer camp, it's 8:30 to 3:30, so those are long days, Monday through Friday. So if your child can handle that, then that would help you get a little more information about handling the 9 to 2.
Yeah, definitely agree with that. Summer camp would be a great way to get a feel for how Wild Roots operates, for sure. Okay, those are the questions that came through in the chat. I'm just going to add a couple more questions that might be something people want to know about. Can you talk a little bit about Montessori and how, just for people that don't really know that word, what does that mean to you? How does it impact the way that you teach and how you guide children's learning?
Yeah, I think we talked a lot about it already, but when I talk about Montessori, I focus on the fact that it is child focused. When I look at a more traditional type of classroom, it's not really focused on the child. It's not really focused on making sure that the child is getting what they need. They're making sure that the child is acclimating to what they are expected to do. In a more traditional classroom, they're expected to be silent pretty much the entire day. They're expected to raise their hand anytime they want to talk, and they're being told to sit and listen and to get things, where the teacher is having all the things and telling them what to do all day long. In a Montessori classroom, we are more focused on the child being an independent individual. And so when the child needs to go to the bathroom, they go to the bathroom. When the child is hungry, they eat. They don't have to ask permission just to care for their own basic needs. When a child is struggling in reading, then they're going to get some more fine-tuned focus on that individualized instruction. But if they are being so independent, they're an older child and they can just read on their own, then they'll get that more one-on-one attention to be like, okay, what are you choosing in terms of reading today? Because I can guide you in these ways rather than forcing you to just sit there and get everything I'm deciding for you. Us also with Montessori, we focus on a lot of hands-on work. So that they are touching and feeling and moving things around instead of just sitting there doing paper pencil worksheets or watching a video. They're getting the real life experience because they are touching the materials, they are moving it around, and they're making it in terms of understanding in that way. I don't know if that answered that question.
That does. It brought up another question too, so that was perfect. Do children need to have previous experience in a Montessori setting in order to be able to meaningfully engage with Wild Roots content?
No, not at all. Something that I absolutely love, especially I get to see it during our summer camps, is most of the time, especially if kids are not coming from a Montessori background, they come to us on day one and they don't know what to expect. But by day 2 or day 3, you can start to see them coming out of their shell. Especially I do have experience with this in a traditional classroom because I taught Montessori for 9 years and then did 2 years of traditional classroom. And the beginning of the year is hard because they are expecting to do a traditional type model. But they then start to shift and they start to follow their known natural rhythms where we are building a community inside the classroom. And then I can be able to find those natural leaders and say who I trust and who's needing more support. So absolutely not. Having had experience in the past, that is absolutely not a prerequisite. What we find is that kids who are more in a more structured environment, being told what to do at all times, they are uncertain of what to do, but then they start to flourish and thrive because they're able to truly be themselves and they're able to be part of a community where we work and build together. And it's really incredible to see. So to answer that question in a really long-winded way, no, they do not have any prior experience.
So another question is about communication, and I think it would be useful to address this in the concept of day-to-day communication. For instance, how you're interacting with parents during the actual school time, microschool time. And then additionally, if you could speak to the narrative progress report, especially for people who are more familiar with a traditional setting, that concept of narrative progress report might be a little bit confusing. So maybe speak to both of those.
Yeah, I appreciate you helping me fine tune the answers. Thanks, Kristen. Okay, so a day-to-day connecting conversation, one, those can be brief chats in car line. The way that I prefer to operate, and if your child comes with me to camp, I am not going to let you know that your child was bad because I don't believe that any child is ever bad. I believe that humans make mistakes. And when things happen during the day, we resolve them. When kids fight and have conflict, we actually truly stop and pause what we're learning, pause what we're doing, and we resolve the problem then and now. If it carries over to home, I might give you that information to just say, hey, these 2 kids hit each other with sticks today. And here's how we solved it. If your child brings up at home, I want you to know the truth of the story. So that way we can be on the same page. In Montessori, we work with a triangle. We are a partnership, teacher, child, and family. So we are a partnership. And so sometimes it's just me giving you information so that if it comes up at home, you can be able to support your child. Also, in terms of day-to-day conversations, I love to use my phone to send lots of pictures, lots of videos, so that you get to see what your child is getting to do during the day. Currently for camps, we're using the WhatsApp the WhatsApp app, and as a way to be able to create a community to send pictures. In the past, I've used an app called Remind. I've also used Parent Square because that's what that district expected. But we use some type of communication tool in terms of texting so that I can tell you about what was happening with the child that day and also send lots of pictures. So that's more of like the day-to-day conversations. If your child isn't having like daily conflict, I still want you to know what's going on. So I might try to just send a quick little blurb. What I try to do is I have like a little tracking data card, and I pull up a new card every single day so I can just focus individually on that kid. And I can send a picture of that kid for that day, something super positive that I'm excited about that your kid is doing. Like your kid just mastered this really amazing thing. Like your kid just figured out how to solve an addition problem or whatever, like a really big thing that they just mastered. I want you to hear that. And then I also might tell you a goal that we're still working on. Like we're still working on your child remembering to wash their hands after they go to the bathroom, something like that. So that way you can kind of have that more day-to-day check-in point. And I pull a kid every day so that way I can keep track of that flow and that we're checking with you on a regular basis. In terms of the narrative progress report, one narrative, as you can tell, I'm a talker. Narrative is more of the expository writing in terms of like we have a scope and sequence so that we can check off and say these are all the things your child has learned. But in terms of our Montessori, we aren't looking for a pass or fail because we don't believe that your child should ever fail something. If your child is failing it, it just means your child needs to continue to learn it. It needs to continue to grow in it. And that's why we have mixed ages so that we get to continue that education on. So we don't ever have a grade. We don't ever have an honor roll system or a grading system where it's like your child failed this class and now good luck. Hope they succeed in the future. We are going to continue to work and grow as a team and figure out how to help your child be successful in this area. In terms of a narrative, it's really just more, these are the strengths that your child has, and these are the goals that we're still working on. So that's something that we work on a lot in terms of the individualized plan is they should always have something they are working on, and they should always have things that they are getting better at and mastering as we go. Does that help answer that question, Kirsten?
Yes, that's really helpful. One other element that I think you could speak a little bit more to with the Montessori element is how you talked about that the children make their plan for the day at the beginning of the day. I think that's a really unique Montessori aspect, and especially something about the way that you guide the children's learning. So maybe if you could speak a little bit to that.
Yeah. I love that. So a little tidbit about Kirsten. Kirsten worked with me in my classroom, and so she knows everything that I do. So it's helpful for her to guide me through some of these questions. So thanks, Kirsten. Yes. So when the child comes in every single day and they create their plan, when they receive a lesson from me, we track it in their educational lesson plan. So if they come to me and they get a lesson on reading, or they come to me and they get a lesson on grammar, or they come to me and they get a lesson on adding, we'll have that tracked in the lessons they've received. And then I also have all my tracking plans. But then when they make their daily plan, they need to make sure that they have every single work that they can do planned in their day. So maybe, because you could see in that, how did we structure it? I think it's 4 hours. Where was it? The schedule. It was inside the comprehensive plan. I think we said it was from 10 to 1. The schedule. Nope, that's not where it is.
For the work cycle.
Thank you. Yes, the work cycle is in the program overview. 3 hours. Yes. So a normal Montessori, 10 to 11, 12, 1. Okay. So 3 hours. Thank you. That would be a normal Montessori work cycle is a 3-hour cycle. So for those 3 hours, how is your child going to choose to use their time to practice these different lessons? They get to pick the order they want to go in. So if the child decides every single morning they want to start with their adding work, awesome. If they want to do their second work is their phonics work, great. I don't care. As long as they are practicing every single thing they need to practice on a regular basis, they get to pick the order they go in. But then they show their plan to me and I double check that I agree with their plan, because this is where I start to notice some things. If a child is avoiding a work, that could mean something. It might be too hard for them, and I might need to go backwards with them or reteach it to them. If they're avoiding something, it might be too easy for them, and maybe I need to bump up the rigor and give them something more challenging. It might mean they just simply forgot, especially when we're talking about executive function with children. They might just have been forgetting it, or maybe it just feels a little boring to them, and we need to figure out a new approach to get them engaged in the work. But most often, kids get really excited about every single lesson they get from me, and they cannot wait to get started on it. And so they want to plan it, and they actually have a hard time choosing which order they want to get it done in. Additionally, I help them focus on prioritizing their most important work. So if we're really focusing on something that they're struggling with, we want to make sure that's a 1 or a 2. Especially, I can be mindful of checking in with them, especially if they're needing some more one-on-one attention. I can be mindful that I'm going to really focus on that kid. They're going to sit by me while they're doing that work and might be doing something else, but I'm right there ready to support them if they need it. I want to help them prioritize that plan. Sorry, I just stopped talking, but does that answer that plan of that question?
Yes. Thank you for addressing that. Very helpful. There's a question about teacher to child ratio.
Great question. Legally, a teacher to child ratio is 12 to 1. Currently with camps, we have 10 to 1 or even smaller ratio because we're outside and we want to make sure kids are in a safe practice. In terms of our classroom that we're looking at, I want you to know that we will try to keep under that 10 to 1, because we want to make sure that kids are getting as much individualized focus as we can. But it also comes down to numbers. If we have a fewer number of kids, then I only need me and maybe one other supporter. If we do get to that 30, then I'm looking to have 4 teachers, me plus 3 others, so that we can be able to make sure that those kids are getting the instruction that they need and getting the supports that they need.
Wonderful. Thanks, Michael. All right, I think that we have encompassed a whole lot of information, a lot of different topics, a lot of questions. And like we mentioned, we'll be sending out the recording of this call, so you can go back and listen to any piece that you feel you want to hear again. We'll also include all of these documents that Michael walked through so that you can fully read through them yourself if you're someone like we are that loves to have all the information. Yep. And we also have a lot of this information embedded into the website now for each of the programs, so you can easily find the information on the website as well. And if there's anything that, as you're reviewing the recording or reviewing the documents or the website, if anything else comes up that you really want to know about, or any other topic that you feel we need to be addressing to make sure that you feel comfortable, then please email us. You can find our email address on our website, but it's also just team@wildroots.com, wildrootsnbl.com. And Michael and I both see the emails that come through there, so we'll make sure that your question gets answered and that we address that so that you feel comfortable and have all the information you need.
Yes. Thank you, Kristen.
Of course.